my pleasure to introduce our keynote speaker. Otha Skip Spriggs is Executive Vice President and Chief Human Resources Officer at TIAA-CREF. He is a member of the company's executive team. And Skip, we're all rooting for your firm's continued success because virtually every college professor and teacher in the U.S. has our retirement money invested with you. Mr. Spriggs joined TIAA-CREF in 2012 and oversees company-wide human resources strategy and execution for the company's 7,800 employees. He leads employee rewards and benefits, talent assessment, development, acquisition and deployment, learning organizational development, and diversity and inclusion, among other areas. A major area of focus is to ensure that TIAA-CREF's talent and business strategies are fully aligned to serve their clients. Mr. Spriggs has more than 25 years of human resources experience. He joined TIAA-CREF from Boston Scientific, where he was Senior Vice President of Human Resources and led HR services such as recruiting, compensation, benefits, policies, training and leadership development for more than 25,000 employees worldwide. Prior to Boston Scientific, Mr. Spriggs held executive leadership roles at the Home Depot, Levi Strauss & Company, Catalent Pharma Solutions, and Cigna Corporation, where he served as Senior Vice President of Human Resources, Chief Diversity Officer, and President of the Cigna Foundation. He started his career in HR with United Parcel Service. He serves as a member of the Savannah State University College of Business Administration's Board of Directors and is an HR Advisory Board member with our own Regal and Emory Board here at the University of South Carolina's Moore School of Business. He holds a bachelor's degree in administration from Towson State University. Please join me in welcoming Skip Spriggs.
Thank you, Dean Teagan. I appreciate that. Is anybody graduating today? Raise your hand if you're graduating today. Raise your other hand if you're paying bills now. It all starts now. It all starts now. My son, Chris, asked me a few minutes ago, he said, Dad, are you nervous about addressing the group? And I said, no, Chris, I'm just nervous whether or not you have your phone on or not. Do you have your phone off? You'll see a different side of Mr. Spriggs if his phone rings during this conversation. This bottle keeps jumping off. So this is kind of an odd experience for me. Growing up as a son of a single parent in Baltimore, I never thought I'd be addressing a group like this. Matter of fact, I wasn't even sure if I'd get through school. I grew up in a family that was a non-traditional single family. My father was a captain in the Army. He was a captain in the Army during the Vietnam War. And he got called to serve his country in Vietnam, and he went and he served proudly as a captain in the Army. And he came home, and one of the things about being in the Army at that time as a captain, if you served and you did your time, my father could have gotten out, but he didn't because my father was committed to the Army. When I was in second grade, my dad came back to see me at school, and he said, son, I'm going back. He said, I'm going back to Vietnam again. And he said, I don't have to go, but this is my commitment. I'm committed to defending the country and making this a free place to live. And my dad didn't come back the second time, but I learned a very valuable lesson as a young child about the value of commitment. And that may not seem to be a big story for you, but so now it's just my mother and I, and we're in Baltimore. And for those of you who have ever been to Baltimore and made it out, Baltimore's a tough town. If you ever see The Wire? Anybody ever see The Wire? Baltimore's a tough town. And so it's just my mom and I. We lived in a one-bedroom apartment. And interesting about that, my mother's been blind since she was 10, totally blind. And so though she lost her vision at a very young age, she did not allow her losing her sight to stop her from being able to see. And my mother went on to go to Morgan State College, Morgan State University now, where she got her degree in English. And I tell my kids all the time, and I tell my students who don't want to go to class, imagine having to get up earlier than everyone else because you want to make sure that you get dressed, you want to make sure the outfit matches like everyone else. This is the early 50s where textbooks aren't in Braille, so my mother had to go to class. She had to go to every class, and she couldn't miss class because what she missed, she couldn't go back home and read and catch up later. Imagine 1950s going back and forth to the classroom when you complained sometimes about an 8 o'clock class that her only guidance between the dorm and her classroom was her CNI dog. Her CNI dog's name was Chiefy, and my mom went on to graduate summa cum laude. And what she instilled with me, and the reason I'm telling you that story is there's a lot of times when it can be too tough for you, and there's a lot of times when you can give a reason why it's not going to work. But there's going to be somebody in your life that's been through something a little bit more difficult than you that just won't let you quit. And my mother never allowed me to quit. I went on to Towson University. As the dean mentioned earlier, I went to Towson actually to play basketball. I got an education on accident. It's a true story. Remember I told you about that whole Baltimore thing? That was one way to get out of Baltimore. And the reason I'm telling these inflection points about my mother and my father is because I think it kind of builds the foundation for a couple of key remarks that I'm going to make for the students who are really entering the workforce for the first time. The third most important person in my family at that time was my grandmother. My grandmother just actually passed away last month she was 100 years old. And when she passed away, literally 2 months before she passed away, she called me up and she was giving me the blues because she said, we need to get the regular refs back on the field. These substitute refs are horrible. She's 100 years old. That's all she cares about. The football games aren't going well because... And my grandmother and mother used to sit at home, and the basketball games when I was in high school would be on the radio. My mother couldn't see, and my grandmother obviously wouldn't go to the game, but they would hear the game or they'd get a report. And my grandmother would always ask me two questions. She would say, did you do the best you could do? Whether you won or lost, did you do the best that you could do? And were you humble? And there's a lot to that, and I'm going to bring that home in a little later, but did you do the best you could do? And are you humble? So my first real lesson for the students here is you will have a lot of opportunities to be successful. You'll have a lot of opportunities to be a failure. Matter of fact, you will learn a lot from your failures as you move forward. But the big question is whether you're successful or not, did you do the best? My guess is the parents and your friends who are here, if they know that you are applying yourself and you know that you're doing your best, that's all anyone can really ask for you. And then the second thing is, are you really humble? Because everyone isn't lucky enough to be in this position that you're in right now. And you're going to have an opportunity to actually one day probably be sitting here and addressing your own graduating class. So always do your best and always be humble. Second thing I'd like to leave you with is this notion of when you finally do enter the workforce, this notion of embrace mobility. As mentioned earlier, I started my career at UPS. Actually, I started unloading trucks while I was in college. And I needed to pay for school, and I had 4 shifts I could choose from. There was a shift that started at 11 o'clock in the morning, another one that started at 5:30, another one started at 11 o'clock at night, the other one started at 3 o'clock in the morning. And all the shifts you could start within the next month, but the 3 o'clock in the morning shift you could start like the next day. And I chose that shift, one, because I wanted the money, but I knew if I was willing to take the job that nobody else wanted, people would recognize that. And over the course of my career at UPS, in 13 years, we moved 6 times. We moved 6 times, Connecticut, Washington, D.C., Baltimore, Atlanta, Dallas, back to Atlanta. The message about mobility is there will be choices that you have to make in your career. I'm asking you to embrace mobility because taking the job that the other person doesn't want will ultimately lead you to the right place. The second thing is, very, very early in my career at UPS, we had an HR development program, and I was blessed with the opportunity to do every specialized field in HR, so comp and benefits, health and safety, labor relations, employee relations. And as you work your way through the corporate environment, some of those jobs you're going to like and some of them you're not going to like. But when I get to one of my closing remarks, I'll tell you why going through all of those individual trials and tribulations ended up being very important in my career. Embrace mobility. By the way, that shift for 3 o'clock in the morning, it was 3 o'clock in the morning to 8 o'clock in the morning, Sunday through Thursday. 3 o'clock in the morning to 8 o'clock in the morning, Sunday through Thursday. Now that sounds like it's not such a good deal, but let me tell you why it was a good deal for me. First thing is, I was making $8 an hour. This is, well, forget how long ago it was, but I was making $8 an hour. But minimum wage was $2.15. So that's how long ago it was. I make $8 an hour. So for every hour I worked, my buddies were working how many? All right, this is class participation. I was making $8 an hour. Minimum wage was 2. For every hour I worked, how many did they work? Round figures, 4. Students, you haven't gotten up here yet. But here's the kicker. Every Friday night I was off, so I got a chance to hang out with everybody else every Friday night, and I never missed a 9 o'clock class. So not so bad. Did you guys ever miss a 9 o'clock class? Don't answer that right now. Embrace mobility. The third message I would leave to you is this notion around adaptability and understanding corporate cultures. Having a technical education does not necessitate success in your corporate environment. UPS was a very dictatorial, autocratic, militaristic environment. Everybody knew what the rules were. Matter of fact, when I worked there, you couldn't have any facial hair. Your hair could not touch the collar of your shirt. Your sideburns couldn't go below your earlobe. Everyone knew what the rules were. When I left UPS and went to go work for Levi Strauss, I still was in the discipline in HR, but it was a completely different culture. Matter of fact, it was the antithesis of what I was used to. Tie-dyed shirts, people wearing sitting coffee on the desk. People wore shirts to work, and people got to work when they felt like it. It was a completely different culture. And then I went to Home Depot. Home Depot was a very entrepreneurial spirit culture. Whatever the customer wanted, that's what we figured out. And so just because you have a particular discipline, the culture that you choose will have a great deal and a big effect on how you become successful. So pick the right culture, but recognize that what you do from a discipline standpoint will be driven a lot by the culture. Lesson number 4, find a mentor. And I had 2 very strong mentors, and they were 2 different people. One was at UPS, and one was at Home Depot. I'll just give you one very quick story about Cal Darden, who was my mentor at UPS. Cal was eventually the senior vice president of operations for the whole company, but I worked my way up through the company very quickly. Remember the message I told you about my grandmother? Be humble and do the very best you can. Well, I was getting promoted so quickly and bypassing people so quickly, I kind of lost sight of that. And we had an event in Metro D.C., and I was in charge of running that event, and I nailed it. I mean, I totally nailed it. And Monday morning, Cal wanted to have lunch with me. I thought Cal was going to tell me what a great job that I did, and I'll never forget this. We ate lunch at the Best Western Hotel on Schweitzer Lane. I had she crab soup and a chicken salad sandwich. The reason I know that is because I never took a bite. Cal, for a half an hour, he never raised his voice, and he never cussed at me, but what Cal said is, why does everyone have to know that you're in charge? Why do you have to be the one out front? Actually, I had yellow shorts on. I could have worn anything, but Cal let me have it for a half an hour. That's what mentors do. Mentors tell you things that your colleagues and your peers won't tell you. And again, I remember what I had because I was biting my lip. You ever been so upset you bite your lip and you know if you stop biting it, you're just going to I didn't want Cal to see me crying. And so I left the restaurant, Best Western Hotel, Schweitzer Lane, she crab soup, chicken salad sandwich. And I got in my car and I said, who does he think he is to talk to me that way? And I was driving back to the office because I was going to quit UPS. And by the time I got down to my office, I realized, holy smokes, who do I think I am? I remembered do the best you can, but I forgot that little humble piece. I'll tell you right now, I haven't forgotten it since, but that's what good mentors do. John Marabito was my mentor at Cigna, and there are many people here that know John very well. When you work your way up through the HR organization, the top job, you just want to be in charge. You want to be the CHRO. But to do that, oftentimes you have to have a corporate role, and I did not want to work in corporate. I was a field guy my entire career, and I valued the field opportunity. John told me I had to take a corporate job, and I told him I wasn't going to do it. And Monday morning, my office was moved Friday, and I came back in, and I had a corporate job. That's what good mentors do. Lesson number 4. And lastly, I would just leave you this. Love what you do. People ask me all the time, like why do you get up and go to work every day? I get up and go to work every day because I love changing people's lives. I love what we do as an HR discipline. I love I love to teach, and I love being taught. You will learn every single day when you get into the corporate world, and you can't stop learning. If you have a job and it becomes a job and it's not a passion, it's not going to be fun. So lesson number 5 is love what you do. So I'll just recap real quickly. Always do your best and be what? And be humble. Embrace mobility. Take the job that people don't always want to take. Be willing to move to Texas sometimes when you don't want to move to Texas. Be adaptable. Find a mentor. Find a mentor that's not afraid to tell you what you don't necessarily want to hear. And most importantly, do what you love and do it well. Congratulations. Thank you.